We saw nominees take a bow and exit the stage. Some asked probing questions, and one nominee overcome with emotions mid-presentation. All this in the last few days of the ministerial screening in the Senate. I'm Linda Kibe, and you're welcome to the Gavel. The Senate screening of individuals who make up President Bola Tinubu's cabinet entered the fourth day on Friday, August 4th in the National Assembly. The Senate is in a race to complete this exercise before it proceeds on its annual recess. The House of Representatives is presently on recess also. Now let's watch some highlights of the ministerial screening.
On Thursday, July 28, President Tinubu, through his Chief of Staff, submitted a list of 28 ministerial nominees to the Senate for confirmation. The Senate fixed Monday, July 31, to begin screening the nominees.
The presentation.
On the first day of the screening exercise, a federal lawmaker raised a point of order, informing the Senate that President Tinubu contravened the Constitution by not sending the list of all the nominees from the 36 states of the Federation to the Senate for confirmation.
Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief did not submit nominees from all the states of the Federation. And if we go ahead, we'll also be condoning that contravention of the Constitution.
Within 60 days, he has brought over 28 ministers and more names are coming. And we've started the process. So we are within the constitutional framework.
The screening began. The first nominee to be screened is a two-time member of the House of Representatives, Mr. Abubakar Momo. As is the tradition of the Senate, former federal lawmakers are not made to answer questions, but asked to take a bow and go. This courtesy is extended to him and to most of the former federal lawmakers scheduled to be screened.
You can bow and go.
Some prominent politicians appear to have the support of the Senate and were also asked to take a bow and go.
I have worked closely with you, but in the meantime, so that we can get into business to look at those who are not really so qualified, if there is any, you can take a bow and go.
Some nominees had questions to answer as regards noted discrepancies in their age, educational background and participation in the NYSC scheme. A nominee was also questioned about a court judgment barring him from office for 10 years.
I went to primary school in the year 1984. The year 1989 was when I got my first living certificate. There was no any Supreme Court pronouncement banning me for 10 years in the judgment. It's just speculations of my enemies.
The female nominees were asked a variety of questions.
I will not just give out 5,000. 5,000 can make 2 pots of soup and the money is gone. I will rather teach them how to fish.
A commissioner in Abia State in 2002 and later became local government chairperson of Umunochi, local government area of Abia State, before I contested for House of Representatives in 2007.
We must get the right governance and the right structure from the top all the way down to the health facilities. Who are those manning it? Who are the managers? Who are the planners? Is it properly planned? And what are those adjustments and streamlining that needs to happen?
After nearly 6 hours, a total of 14 nominees are screened on day 1. On day 2, fewer nominees were accorded the privilege of just taking a bow and exiting, and unlike the previous day's session, nominees were asked more probing questions. For some of the nominees with backgrounds in the banking and financial sector, the questions thrown to them revolved around shoring up Nigeria's foreign reserves, managing the country's huge debt burden, as well as the removal of petroleum subsidy and the governance structure of the CBN.
There is an overfang of unpaid dollar bills, and that is what is putting pressure on the exchange rate, and that is what night and day the monetary authorities and the monetary team of Mr. President is looking to resolve by raising revenue, by looking at other sources of investment funding, by attracting investment funds, equity funds, not debt, from those around the world interested in investing in the Nigerian economy.
The economic management team of the country, of the nation, which comprised of the finance minister, the budget and national planning, the CBN governor, the Accountant General of the Federation, and some other relevant ministries, must have some subtle oversight on CBN in terms of interrogating a lot of decisions of Central Bank of Nigeria.
Prominent politician and former governor of Kaduna State, Mr. Nasir El-Rufai, was also before the Senate to be screened. Senator Sunday Karimi brought to the attention of the upper chamber a petition against the former governor.
In FCT as a minister, your record is there. And as two-time governor of Kaduna State, you did well. But I have a very strong petition against you that borders on security, unity, and cohesiveness of Nigerian nation.
Mr. El-Rufai nevertheless answered questions centered on the power sector.
In the short term, the liquidity situation in the electricity supply industry has to be looked at. Tariffs must be cost reflective, and even the ownership of these distribution companies may have to change, because right now the banks own about 6 of them.
3 female nominees also faced the House to be screened, but one of the nominees was overcome with emotion.
I was more in charge of monitoring and evaluation, policy formation, and implementations of the Millennium Development Goals across poverty eradication, maternal mortality reduction, and child mortality reduction, as well as projects that has to do with education.
That man's name was Alhaji Musa Musawa, and he was my father. He passed on exactly 147 days ago, approximately 3,551 hours ago.
President Bola Tinubu's spokesman, Mr. Dele Alake, opened the screening exercise on day 3. He was asked pointed questions on protecting the freedom of the press and regulating the social media.
The social media has 2 sides. There is a positive side, there is the negative side. The downside is so detrimental to good and decent society. So I will recommend a strengthening of our regulations and application of those regulations.
The minority leader also quizzed him about a remark he made during the presidential campaigns to the displeasure of the majority leader.
I read a statement where you labeled supporters of a particular presidential candidate as wild dogs, buying blood on social media. Have you come across that statement? Are you aware of it?
The minority leader was raising questions that bordered on campaign. This had happened several months ago. And if we are here as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria screening ministerial nominees, we are not supposed to bring in issues that had come and gone.
Mr. Lateef Fagbemi was up next, and he spoke passionately and exhaustively on the judiciary, the rule of law, as well as some noted eyebrow-raising practices by some anti-corruption agencies.
If I have my way, I will advise the president to unbundle, first of all, bring ICPC and EFCC together, unbundle them. Investigation should not be handled by the same body. There must be a supervisory authority within the same system. It doesn't augur well to ask the same authority to, do investigation, come and do prosecution. That is where we have problems.
Medical expert Dr. Ali Pate was also before the Senate to be screened, and questions centered on vaccine independence, welfare of medical workers, and resources for the health sector. Fellow nominee Dr. Doris Uzoka, who is the last ministerial candidate in this batch, focused on the business and investment environment.
We need to look at the conditions of service, the circumstances, the compensation, and in a way re-energize the sector around the mission, because no one joins the health sector who is not committed to serving his or her patients.
If we improve the land reform of each state, because the businesses are within the states, the economy of this country is within the states, and that's the responsibility of the state governors. There should be a deliberate attempt to improve land reform, and most especially automate the process of owning land, owning property, landed properties, and using it for businesses.
After the screening of the first batch of ministerial nominees, Senate President Godswill Akpabio read a letter from President Tinubu with the names of 19 more nominees. The President's Chief of Staff had conveyed the letter to the National Assembly earlier on. Prominent on the list are 5 former governors: Adigboyega Oyetola, Atiku Bagudu, Bello Matawale, Ibrahim Gaidam, and Simon Lalong. Some former and serving lawmakers made the cut, namely Senators Aliyu Abdullahi, Heineken Lokobari, Zephaniah Jesalo, and Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu.
Of the Senate.
The screening continued on Friday, August 4. But before the exercise, the Senate President received a correspondence from President Bola Tinubu, wherein he replaced the ministerial nominee Mariam Shetty with Mariga Mahmood. He also named former Minister of State for Labour, Festus Keyamo, as a new ministerial nominee. The nominees, who are former and serving federal lawmakers, as well as former governors, were also given the privilege of taking a bow and exiting the chamber. However, some nominees were asked a wide variety of questions.
We caught up with some ministerial nominees right after their screening session.
I'm prepared for the job, and I want to thank Mr. President for finding me worthy to work with him. I will give all the support to the way I worked in Rivers. I will work on how I did in Rivers, to give Mr. President the enough support that will make him, of course, fulfill the yearnings of Nigerians.
Time you are asked questions, some questions may be challenging, and some questions will be eye-opening. Some questions will broaden your horizon, so that as you go into the ministries, you try to see how those questions that were put before you can provide solutions for them. So it's actually a good one. The era of answering questions, I think, is better than take a bow and leave.
People have the temptation to think that because you're a politician, you got no background. I mean, I spent close to 7 years teaching in the university, right? I mean, I got a first degree, I got 2 master's degrees, I've gone through a lot of training in the course of my work. I mean, I have demonstrated that. So when people say that the president has a team that is the usual people, it's because people like us are mistaken to be the usual people.
We are Africa's largest democracy. You can see what is happening in our neighborhood. So it's time to make sure that democracy is reinstated in our region and on the African continent. If you look at demography again, we're the largest country on the continent. We're going to be the 4th largest country in the world by the year 2050. So we need to align with other large demographic countries.
They asked about the health system and what exactly we will do to revitalize the health system, beginning with the goal for Nigeria to achieve universal health coverage. And of course, from there to primary health care, the health insurance, reduction of maternal mortality, policies that is going to reduce the flight of doctors and other health workers from the country.
For me, experience is the best teacher. And so since I've gone through this route and I know what it is, it will inform my decision that Nigerians should expect the best from the crop of nominees that the president have brought into National Assembly for confirmation.
We are going to ensure farewell to poverty. However, Nigerians must be well reminded that Rome wasn't constructed in one day. And it's easier to destroy, many, many times more difficult to build. So in the process of building, there will be pains.
I will dedicate my time, my life, and all that I have to see that his hope agenda for Nigeria works. Because I'm a mother, and I believe that I have to secure a better future for my children.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. The House of Representatives is on recess, but that has not stopped legislative work from continuing by members. Now, the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee kick-started its investigation of a non-completion of the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway, which it says has been stalled for nearly 5 years.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee summoned officials of the Ministry of Works over the delay in the completion of the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway.
Your own updated presentation.
The chairman of the committee observes that the project was awarded in 2018.
Before us here is a matter of concern to the House of Representatives and Nigeria. To that effect, a motion with regards to the completion of the Kaduna or Abuja to Kaduna to Kano Highway was brought to the House, where we were mandated to sit down with the relevant agencies and report back to the House within 4 weeks the reason why we have delay in the completion of that road. The total contract sum, if you look at it, revised 355 billion, and so far 125 billion released, and only 20% of the work is being done.
The ministry had earlier set the first quarter of 2024 as a completion date for the 375.9-kilometer dual carriageway, which extends to Kano. The permanent secretary in the ministry, Mahmouda Maman, gave an update on the state of work on the road and blames the stalled project on lack of funds and insecurity.
Kano Dual Carriage Expressway was among the first that I also inspected upon my assumption in the ministry. Because of the importance of the road, when I read the report, I make it as a responsibility that, let me go and assess the fiscal condition and the situations on the road. And we went, we saw what it is, and the contractor, just like he said, gave us commitment that all things being equal by May 2025, the fiscal structure, the construction aspect is going to be completed. He mentioned the challenges that actually militate against the early completion of the road, mainly the issue of security and initially to funding.
The committee promised to unravel factors that have delayed the project for over 5 years and meets the 4 weeks mandate given by the House leadership to complete the investigation.
On Constituency Focus, we speak with Representative Ogoro Emmanuel, representing Abakaliki in Ebonyi State, to find out the needs of his constituents and how he intends to meet some of them in the next 4 years.
I'm coming from the background where the needs of my constituents are so many and varied. So many because it happens to come from the eastern part of Nigeria, where there have been some certain level of neglect by the government. And that now makes it so difficult that so many things are not there. We need almost everything in my place, especially things that has to be coming up from the national level. The employment, it happens to be key. Empowerment. I am talking about the youth this time. You see, the number of youths, upcoming ones, are so many that they need to be cared for. And so when I was coming here, it happens to be my key issue when I was going on campaign, that I will do everything within my reach to ensure that by the time I will come out, I will not be leaving my people the way I left them when I was coming to the National Assembly. And one of the things that I have to do, which I'm already asking God to back me up with my own effort, is to get them empowered. Empowerment can be in the area of employment. Empowerment can also be in the area of assisting them in whatever they are doing, financially, giving them some implement materials, Abakaliki, Izi, where I come from, happens to be predominantly agrarian area. But the agrarian in the sense that the elders are into it. The youths can also get there if the agriculture is mechanized. You don't expect a youth today after going to the university, he now carries the hoe and begin to dig the ground. So there should be mechanized system of agriculture where the plant, they will be given tractors, they will be given the implements, they will be given so many other things. And there should be irrigations here and there because the soil is there. Before this time, agriculture used to be the mainstay of Nigerian economy. But today, it is no more that way. It's not that way because government appears not to be doing something they ought to do in that area. By the time they do it, people will be interested in reading agric in the university. Even if you don't read it, you practice it. After our forefathers who were doing it never went to any university before it became part of them. And from my place, Izi Abakaliki, there's nobody, no matter how highly placed, no matter how red your status, you need to get to the farm. Because everything you are eating in your family must not be bought. You can see the joy that you come back, you get to the farm, get corn, get rice, get yam, get so many other things. When you do that, then not only that it gives you the joy, the economic aspect of it, and it has reduced the person from getting engaged in negative vices that is everywhere today. So that's why it is very important that government assist us, like I am already doing one thing or the other, to ensure that my people get employed, especially at the federal level. How do I do it? I don't need to fold my hands like this. Within the few days or months I've been here, I've been going from one office to the other. Sometimes you won't even know that there's job existing. But when you get there, then you poke nose, begin to ask questions if it exists. Then I've already created a data bank, a register where I'm collecting the status, educational status of my constituents. From that, I will now know wherever any job exists, then I will pick from there and call the person, can you put up application in this place? Because you don't expect them from there. Do they even have the money to pay transport? Do they even have the food to eat? So the reason for which I'm here is to do some of those ones they cannot do. And they also do the one they will do. By so doing, they now get something doing. When they have something doing, they're already empowered. They will now be proud that they are part of the community, they are part of the society, they are part of Nigeria. Outside that, criminality will be climbing on itself.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of the Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.